So today I am going to discuss about how to call API by using async await in SwiftUI. How to call API by using async await in SwiftUI. By using async await in SwiftUI. And SwiftUI 5.5 is new update. SwiftUI 5.5 is new update async await. So introduce asynchronous async functions into Swift. Introduce asynchronous async functions into Swift, allowing us to run complex asynchronous code. Almost is. If it were asynchronous, this is done into two steps. Marking two steps. First step is marking done into two steps. So marking async function with the new async keyword. Marking async function with the new async keyword, and the calling the using the await keyword. The calling the function using the await keyword. Similar to the their language, similar to the other languages such as C# and JavaScript. To see how assign await help to language. So first of all, we're gonna get on this example. How to call API by using async in SwiftUI. So we're gonna get on the SwiftUI by using design patterns. So we're gonna get on the Swift file. Suppose which have a this is the user, but it's not. We're gonna create on the which have our in this URL our achi URL in this URL our URL in this URL, and we can get on the Google prompt. We can assign the URL and achieve on the JSON. So this is a ID, which is type of integer, and type, this is a general string, and setup, what do you vegetarian zombies creating this punchline whichever, and you can use a JSON. So in this JSON use of our project in this JSON. So ID and setup and cat. So we're gonna get on, suppose we're gonna get on this user model, and we can remove this, suppose in this, okay, command N, which has Swift file. Suppose this is a user model, but it's not as useful. This is a and jokes model, okay. We're gonna create on the jokes model, and we're gonna create on this structure, so which have a jokes model, which is confirm of codable, and we're gonna create on this property var id, which is type of integer, optional, and var. In the optional, we're gonna assign on the optional in this value last is achieve on this API data calling on this fetch in this data. We can fill in this id. So var, we can last element, this is the id, type, and type, setup, and punchline. So which have a type, this type of string and var, which we're gonna get on, this is the type, and we're gonna get on this type, same achievement on this JSONs. So in this setting setup and punchline, we're gonna get on the setup and punchline, okay. And we're gonna get on the var setup, which is type of string, and punchline, which is type of string, okay. We're gonna create on this our model, okay. Thank you. So we're gonna create on this jokes model, and last by using design pattern. So last step is view model. So command N, we're gonna create on this Swift file. This is a jokes view model, which have a jokes view model, okay. We're gonna create on this jokes view model, and we're gonna create on this class. So jokes view model, which is confirm of observable object, which is confirm on this observable object in this class, okay. And observable object, and we're gonna create on this function. So in this observable object, fetch on this data. So first of all, we're gonna create on this API data. We can fetch on this class. So suppose we're gonna create on this command N, and we're gonna create on a SwiftUI file. This is the API session manager. Okay, we're gonna create on this singleton class API session manager. So class in this API session manager. Okay, we're gonna create on this singleton. In this class is a singleton class. So static, which have on this static let shared is equal to API session manager. Okay, we're gonna create on this instance this API session managers, and API session manager class we can fetch on this API data. In this class, fetch on this API data. So we're gonna create on this function. We're gonna create on this function. This is a function is fetch jokes. Okay, fetch jokes. Fetch jokes, and in this function not parameter, and in this function async function, async and arrange throws. Okay, and in this function return type it is a data, which have a data return type. Okay, and in this data which have a optional return type in this data. So fetching on this data by using fetching on the data by using library URL session library. By using fetching on this data you are by using URL session. So first of all we're going to create on this URL let URL jokes is equal to URL which have assigned on this string initializers, and our create on this string which have on this our strings on this URL. We can copy in this URL and assign on this our singleton class on this URL JSON. Okay, we can and this URL force unwrap we can assign on this URL. Suppose this is the URL but it's not URL assigned on this. So in this URL force unwrap in this URL. Okay, so we can create on this data let data jokes. Suppose which have let data jokes and underscores which have data jokes and is equal to try, and await which have calling on this try await. In this function is async in try await calling on this URL sessions third party download managers download sessions URL sessions dot shared and dot which have an initializer on this data initializer data, and is from we're gonna URL suppose which is URL jokes assign and remove on this delegate. Okay, URL JSON jokes. Okay, and return in this function return on this data. So return data jokes. Okay, which have written data jokes. Not issue in this UI elements. Okay, so thank you for following this API fetch data. Okay, so we're going to create on this view model and fetch on this users. So we're going to get on this function achieve on this view model. So fetch in this you can use of view model in the function in this user fetch jokes. Fetch jokes function in this no parameter and no return values in this function, which have no parameter and no return values in this function. So we can calling on the async in this function async by async await function is called async mark in this function by using calling on async closer and which have in this suppose this is the API call function which have API call function, and this is a dispatch queue dot main and dot async which have a create on this loader. Suppose we can loader and thread we can use. Suppose we're gonna create on this property. Firstly, property var view jokes view model jokes model which is in this code we're gonna create on this jokes model create on this instance, and this in this jokes view model published on the property. So published var and which have published var this is a jokes and which is type of jokes model and is equal to, we're gonna assign the jokes model instance. And we're gonna create on this another property that is published var, which have in this loader. Loader is the activity indicator. Loader which is type of, and loader which is type of bool. Okay, we're gonna create and publish two property, and we're gonna achieve class. We need two initializers, and in it we're gonna calling the class initializer, so we can access two parameter. So jokes, and which have a loader, and we can assign the self dot jokes is equal to jokes, and self dot loader is equal to loader. Okay, in this not applying this issue, but it's a and loader jokes sorry, not loader, this is the activity indicator. Activity indicator which have a activity indicator, and in this activity indicator which is type of activity indicator and activity indicator. Okay, but it's not issue in this UI, so we're going to get on this complete on this initializer method. So first is screen load on this data, so we can calling on this, so activity indicator, so activity self dot activity indicator is equal to false. Fetching on this data activity indicator, it is equal to false, and we're gonna create on call on this API let data jokes is equal to, we can calling on this method, so try and optional, so await, we can calling on this await, and we can calling singleton class. This is a API session manager dot shared dot, we can calling the fetch user API. Calling on this method fetch user API. Okay, and in this data, let decoding this data. This is the decode data call API decode data, so which have let data decode is equal to, and you can assign the data decode equal to try optional, and try optional, so we can create on the JSON decoder, which have JSON decoder create on this instance dot decode data from, we can assign this our model is a jokes model dot self. Sorry, we can achieve this jokes model, so jokes model dot self, we can attempt those, and we can achieve this data, so our data is data jokes. Otherwise otherwise in this data is empty, so we can is data is in empty data, it's like in this empty data. Okay, so decoder data in this complete, and we're going to call in this main thread in this data, so dispatch queue dot main dot async, sorry, dot async, and calling on this our data set, and fill on this data, fill data into model, fill data into model, and our model we can achieve on the our model property, so self dot, so jokes dot, we can assign this is the first is id, and is equal to, we can assign this first dot id is equal to data decode dot id. Okay, we can assign the dot id, and same call on this all parameters, so self dot jokes dot, we can assign this is a setup, and is equal to data decode dot setup, and we're going to call them this self dot other properties of this is a punchline, sorry, jokes dot punchline, which have on this dot punchline property, and is equal to, this is a data decode, and we're going to move punchline properties. Okay, punchline, and in this loader self dot loader dot activity indicator is equal to true, which have a activity indicator is equal to true. Okay, so in this view model is complete, and achieve on this fill in this data with, so jokes model API session manager, this is the API session manager calling on this API, and we can create on this SwiftUI view and show on this screen data, so command N, which have a SwiftUI view jokes view. Okay, and in this is in this jokes view, so in this jokes view we can achieve on the achieve on this object. This is observable object, achieve on the observed object. So at the rate observed object. So object what this is a, we can assume use jokes VM, which is type of jokes model, jokes view model, which is type of jokes view. In this initializing this property, suppose in this initializing this property, and this is a jokes VM, jokes view model, and which have on this is a jokes, and which have on this is a jokes model, and create on this instance, and this bool is activity is to false. In this preview design on this preview, but it's not issue in this UI, but in this preview design. Okay, and we're gonna create on this design. Suppose we're gonna create on this Z stack, and we're gonna create on this V stack, and in this V stack alignment is suppose which we're gonna create V stack, and we're gonna create on this text. So which have text on this bind in this, so text and jokes VM dot jokes and dot id. Okay, and in the id otherwise id, and in this id is integer type, so we can use a string interpolation in this id. We can use of string interpolation in this id, string interpolations in this id, but is in this id string interpolation, and default value is 0. In this default value in this 0, default value in this 0, default value. And so we can use of jokes and id default value in this 0, and in this default value in this 0. So and default value in this 0, we can achievement on this default value in this 0. Okay, in this integer value, and we're gonna apply on this property in this text. So suppose you can apply on this property in this text. This is the headline in this font, and we're gonna apply on this weight. Suppose which have a heavy weight on this. Suppose we cannot apply on this heavy, but it is a bold on this weight. So we which have color on this. Suppose in this property color. So this is a purple gray, and this is a purple color, which on this purple color. But is in this purple color, we can same text in this calling, but is first and third. And in this jokes we can calling on this is a setup, and we can calling this dot setup, but it's not in this string interpolation. So jokes VM and dot jokes dot setup, which are calling on this dot setup, otherwise empty string. Okay, and same calling in this method. So jokes VM dot jokes dot punchline text, otherwise is empty string. Okay, we can calling on this v stack in this complete, and in this v stack we're gonna apply on this dot padding, and which have we're gonna apply on this on appear, and on appear is a greater than fast speed and achievement. This is a dot task modifier in SwiftUI. This is a task calling on this task method. So our user VM, which sorry user not applying the jokes VM, and is equal to, we can assign this we can calling on this method. Suppose which have calling on this method is so user VM dot fetch jokes, which have fetch jokes in this method. So fetch jokes. Okay, and and jokes VM dot activity indicator is equal to true, and activity indicator is equal to true, and we're gonna apply on this. So in this task modifying this apply, and task modifier same working on this on appear method. Task modifier same working on this on appear method. We're gonna apply on this progress view, and we're gonna apply on this progress view property dot is hidden with hidden property. In this is hidden property, we're gonna send the view border. So we can calling on this extensions which have on this view, and extension view at the view builder. We can assume this view builder. Suppose we can assume the view builder function, whichever is the func, and in this function is hidden progress view. In is hidden progress view, and in this function is hidden, and which is type of bool, in this property which is type of, and in this function return some view. Okay, and we're gonna apply this condition if is hidden, and we can is hidden, otherwise in this condition is true. So self dot is hidden. Okay, we can calling on this is hidden, not this is a hidden property in this progressive dot hidden, calling on hidden property. Otherwise we can use the else statement, we can calling on this else statement, and this is a self, not apply on this condition, this is a self. Okay, we can use the filter, we can achievement on this progressive. Suppose we can apply on this progressive properties, this is a dot is hidden progress view, and in this, this is a jokes vm dot activity indicator property, this bool property activity indicator. Okay, and you can apply dot progress view style, circular progress view style, whichever. Suppose we have circular progress view style, and tint, this is a primary, which have a tint color dot red color. Okay, and we can apply dot scale effect, which has this 77 scale effect is 7. Okay, in this progress we win this done, not assign on this way. So we're gonna complete on this process, we're gonna running on this app. Okay, so jokes vm, and we're gonna run on this project. So jokes vm, and this is a jokes vm, this is the jokes view model, and jokes view assigning the jokes model, and it's loader. Suppose loader is false, and we're gonna run on this applications, run on this url, we're gonna run on this applications. So async this two users. So two types, suppose we can apply on this, but it's not in this UI, but it is two users to tell the compiler when the piece of code is asynchronous. To tell the compiler when the piece of code is asynchronous. And async, second step is to spawn asynchronous task in parallel. And await is where the magic happens, where the program finds the await. So in this find on this data in this UI, we can set to check on this. This is there, we can in this change on this UI. Suppose we can change on this, we can set on this. This is a another in this. Suppose which have a URL, our URL achievement. This is data totally I harm sandwich walked in bar and order other partner and sales. I am sorry, we don't know sorry for, and we can other calling different calling on this API. So in this API session manager, in this different answers in this UI. This is even so they have a hard running on around is better. Suppose we can different running on this API and in this event. Always mix, and because of October 65, suppose we have in this view model on this view, and when view in this you can apply on this is the alignment next, and we can apply on this the 20 spacing. Okay, and we're gonna run on this applications. Once 87, why did you later say tomato, early tomato, and I will catch up. Suppose we can our view URL, and we can copy in this URL and tabbed on this Google Chrome in this URL. So we can data exchange. This is the general type, and setup is the what did you not different statement in this UI, different statements. Okay, and so different statements. So punchline and setup and type. So we can check on in this property this type and this jokes model and this four part type property, and this we can one type property is remove. So we can check apply on this text, and we can apply on this text. Suppose we can jokes and this is a type. Okay, and we can run on this applications. Fetching loader on this data, fetching on this API. This is the 25 and half pounds and load in this data. This is the load in this data in this UI. Suppose we going to purple color in this session on this UI in the designing and view model session manager. We can apply in this session manager in this URL session manager, and in this run on this another statements in this UI. This is fetch on this tint color and those and AC brand we can channel snake use of support. What does female is mean? And we can know this applications and different UI answer in this keys. What is the best part about TCP jokes? And so introduce asynchronous async functions into Swift, allowing us to run complex asynchronous code almost is if it were asynchronous. This is a done into two step marking async function with the new async keyword, then calling the using the await keyword, and similar to the their languages such as C# and JavaScript to C and new assigned to await languages in this UI. So thank you for watching this. We can give you how to call API by using async await in SwiftUI. So this is a view model and calling this async await in this function async await, calling on the function async await, call API async await, and async block in this call on this data, and marking on this function async, marking on this function async in this UI. So thank you for watching. If you can use of enjoy async await in SwiftUI, and is other and is a multiple API calling in this UI. This is another tutorial in this multiple call in this API by using async await. Okay, so thank you for watching. You can use of enjoy my async await in SwiftUI.